Hi, my name is Albert White, and I'm a developmental psychology master's student at CUNY SPS. This is the final presentation for Theories of Personality Psychology 615. My grandmother and the person she is. In this presentation, we will look at my grandmother and how she became the person she is through her childhood and also through the memories that she experienced throughout her life. The who of my grandmother is she was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1925. Her entire childhood was engulfed by the Great Depression, which was some of the most severe economic hardship that this country has ever faced. But luckily, her family was shielded from these effects. Elder, Wynn, and Caspi found that there were two groups of families that existed during the Great Depression: non-deprived and deprived families. Deprived families suffered from the economic hardships of the Depression, such as job loss and also loss of home and security as well. My grandmother, on the other hand, would fall into the category of non-deprived. Both her father and her mother were able to work throughout the Depression, and they were also able to maintain a home in which her and her siblings were afforded some security and some moderating effects from the Great Depression itself. Her memories. Memories can serve many different functions. These functions include direct, social, and self. This is usually dependent on the type of memory, whether single event or reoccurring. And these memories are usually autobiographical in nature. For this presentation, I would like to focus on the memories my grandmother has of her parents and of her grandmother. Her parents, she describes, were very loving people who took care of their house and home, which provided shelter and security for my grandmother and her five siblings. But her grandmother, though, as an individual, seemed to have a special, long lasting effect on my grandmother. My grandmother describes her grandmother as being strong and independent, who showed her in 1930 and 1940 and so on how tough a woman could be at that time. She often tells me this one story of her grandmother climbing a fence into an abandoned house just to prove how strong she really was. Her personality ratings. Out of the Big Five taxonomy, the three most relevant traits that I found for her were extroversion, openness to experience, and agreeableness. In both extroversion and openness to experience, she scores slightly higher than the norms. In agreeableness, she scores slightly lower than the norm. The trait of extroversion includes social ability and positive emotionality, which are two things that I find my grandmother is in possession in abundance of. Openness to experience is, exactly as it sounds, the willingness to try and learn new things, which is something that my grandmother has embraced throughout her entire life. Though at 91 she is not able to travel the way that she used to, she is still always open and willing to learn something new. Agreeableness is modesty and altruism. Now, though she was slightly lower than the norm, these comparisons were made up against a sample in which the oldest age was only 60. I actually wonder if agreeableness and her age do not have some type of correlational effect where she may have scored slightly lower than the norm, but that may have been the norm for her own age group. In terms of her own agreeableness, I find her to be very modest, and she's also very altruistic. She gives unto herself and to others without a moment's hesitation. One of the most glaring components of my grandmother's personality is her honesty. She is almost honest to a fault. In order to measure this using the Big Five taxonomy, honesty and humility are normally grouped together into one trait called honesty humility. The scale used to measure this was the Hexaco PIR. The facets of honesty and humility that are assessed by that measure are sincerity, fairness, greed avoidance, and modesty. She rated higher than the norm in all facets of honesty humility. One of the questions included, would you like to be seen driving a fancy car? Would you like to be seen wearing fancy clothes? Both of which she responded to no, and a 1 on a scale out of 5. One final point that I wanted to discuss was her parenting style. Agreeableness has been shown to have a correlation with nurturing behavior in child rearing. It has also been shown to be correlated with a warm parenting style. This is evident through my own experience and through the experiences of my uncles, aunts, and my own mother. My grandmother is very nice, warm, and caring for everybody in this family and sacrifices even when she doesn't really need to or it's not necessary. In conclusion, it appears that her personality is warm and open. She also gives validity to the Big Five inventory in that I can see how her traits and the traits described in the BFI itself are correlated and very similar in their description and in their function.